The recording started.
We'll hear a quick echo and then I'm going to X out of that window and we're good. Shortly.
The recording started.
Excellent. We'll hear a quick echo and then, all right, we're good to go. Thank you. Did we lose Chris? Uh-oh. Okay, we'll wait a second here.
I'm not sure what is going on with my computer, but I'm here.
You're here. We hear you.
And when I'm clicking start video, there we go. Okay, I'm going to call the meeting of the Salem Public Art Commission to order. It is 9:32, Wednesday, January 12th, 2022. We'll start with introductions. I'm Chris Darcy, Chair of the Commission.
Michael Hernandez, Commissioner.
Spencer Emmerich, Commissioner.
I'm Kelly James, Commissioner.
And our newest.
I'm Zachary Hull, Commissioner.
I'm a guest, Susan Apak.
And I'm Carol Snyder, President of Salem Parks Foundation.
Great. And Heather Dimke with Public Works, City of Salem.
All right, first on our agenda is public comment. Have we had any public comment submitted?
I do not have any public comment this morning.
Excellent. I should say, I think this could be a fairly short meeting. We don't have a lot of action, so we may be able to move through things fairly quickly. Next on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda. I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda, today's agenda, and the minutes of our December 8th meeting.
I move
Is
that
there a
we
motion?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda, the minutes, and the minutes of our December 8th meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, hearing no nos, the consent agenda is approved. Moving on to discussion items. Welcome new Commissioner Zach Hull.
Thank you very much. Pleased to be here.
Excellent. Heather, do you want to talk a little bit about appointments going forward and the timeline for the city's boards and commissions group to make the next round of appointments?
Absolutely, yes. Welcome, Zach Hull. It's really nice to have you here today. Just a quick reminder that he had submitted his application last fall. Boards and Commissions Selection Committee reviewed in early December, and they nominated Zach Hull to City Council at their December 13th meeting. He was approved. So this is his first meeting, January, and we're happy to have you. As well, we still have 2 additional openings on the Art Commission. One of those is an individual experienced in art education or art criticism. And the other individual is someone that is experienced in landscape architecture, real estate development, or community foundations. In that seat, Chris, thank you again. Our chair is staying on for a while until we can fill our seat. That is the position that you currently hold. I've done a quick search. We have received 5 new applications since the last board and commissions selection committee met in December. It looks like there is a couple folks, I just did a quick glance. It looks like there's a couple folks that do have an arts background, arts, some kind of education, and a few that might be, would be considered for at-large position were that to open. So it looks like we're still in need of that position, possibly for somebody that has that landscape experience, real estate development, or community foundation experience. So if we have ideas for sharing that with the community, let me know, or please pass that on as well. The next boards and commission selection committee, it's a mouthful meeting, will be in March. So they'll likely meet early March. We don't yet have a date to review any new applications, the 5 plus any additional that come in. So with that said, we likely won't have any new commissioners joining us formally until April is probably a good bet.
Great. And I just want to note that Susan Napak, who's here as our guest, has also submitted her application for appointment.
And Paula,
For those of you who don't know, welcome, Paula. Susan is also on the board of the Grant Neighborhood Association. And Carol is actually, for your benefit, Susan, Carol Snyder is on the SCAN Neighborhood Association board. So great to have the involvement of both of you this morning.
I guess one other question before we move on, unless there's questions from the group, is so Eileen Cotter-Howell had left us October was her last meeting. She was our vice chair. So we no longer have a vice chair. Chris, you're filling in as our chair, continuing to fill in. So at some point, I don't know if we want to wait until April. I would leave that discussion to the group. We can elect new officers at any time. So let me know how we'd like to proceed with that. It's a simple nomination by the group. And then there's an action process whereby we, the group approves or not. So
Thank you for that reminder. Not to put anyone on the spot, but is there anyone who would like to raise his or her hand about the vice chair this morning? You don't have to, but if anyone is interested.
I
All right,
consider
well,
I consider doing that. I don't know exactly what it entails, but
I think, well, in my experience, at least for the chair and can include the vice chair, it would be making sure that you stay in good touch with Heather on all matters, being available on a time-sensitive basis to approve the draft agenda that she develops, attending all the meetings, and then just being available to, either assign tasks to other commissioners or participate in discussions like surrounding the Echo Earth Ball, special projects, things like that. Eileen did, along with Paula and Rachel, just went beyond the call of duty in terms of the work at the library, putting together, first of all, packing all the materials for shipping and actually up to X Gallery, which Zach owns, for storage. And then working with the Library Foundation to research all of the missing pieces for the labels for over 80 works of art at the library. And then getting all that written and proofed. And yeah, luckily, I don't expect a project of that magnitude to be on the horizon for the next couple of years. But I think showing up and being a voice for this public artwork, I think, is just a lot of it. Being present, which of course you are, Michael.
there's a bit more detail in the SPAC guidelines, or bylaws, I should say, that's posted on our website. So if you search public art, or I could send that back out to the group. It doesn't say a whole lot. It's pretty generic, but there's a bit more in there.
Are we ready to move on to the Public Works Operations building, Heather?
Sounds good.
Okay, so let me go back for just a second. Michael has expressed interest in the vice chair. Is that something that we can take action on today if we have not noticed it, Heather? Or,
Let me peek back at the bylaws again here. While I
okay,
pull them up.
because if we could take action, if that's appropriate today, or wait for the next meeting.
Give me just a moment. So the order of business may be changed by vote. And it doesn't look like this is something that would require, this is a commission decision. So from my read today here this morning, and I should have looked at, I could have reached out to other staff. This appears to be something, if we wanted to move today, we certainly could.
Could we take it up under commissioner comments as our last agenda item?
Very good.
Okay, let's do that then, because we're moving through things pretty quickly. Let's move on to the Public Works Operations Building. I know the RFQ is out. I actually looked on the Regional Arts and Culture Council Public Art Project listing online, and there's a good summary of the project, a link, an email to another city staff person. And yeah, and I guess it was sent directly to all the artists who were the finalists for the library or submitted.
I believe it was the finalist for the library.
Okay, well, that's a good pool.
Yeah.
I shared the listing from the RAC website on my LinkedIn page, and a number of people commented. There's a healthy budget, so if any of you have the opportunity to circulate it in your networks, please do. The deadline's later this month.
Yeah, that was posted on December 16th and runs through January 28th. As mentioned, that was sent to the finalists from the library request for proposals. It was sent directly to Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, Siletz, Warm Springs, and I got updated contacts from our historic preservation program manager. I added those to our PR list as well, so that's nice to have. It was posted to the RAC, the Regional Arts and Culture Council page, as Chris saw, and we also requested that it be posted to the Lane Arts Council page. So I'm told it was. I didn't go back in and peek. And then we posted in a couple places. We don't usually on the city's websites, under public notices, on the public art page. I created a single page kind of handout that I shared with this group. So hopefully you were able to, that made it a little easier as well to pass along. So I reached out to purchasing this Monday, and so far we've received 5 submittals. And apparently there's been quite a bit of interest though. So a lot of people writing into purchasing Deshauna directly to ask questions and to get the complete RFP package. So
That's great.
yeah.
I mean, there's a healthy budget, and that is always a big attractor for artists. Lillian Pitt. Oh, Susan.
Is that a regional search or a national search?
National.
National. Heather, could you send me that handout, the whatever you posted? I can always put that on my social media. I have a kind of wide network of artists across the country.
Wonderful. Happy to do that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
It was really, it was very interesting and enlightening to watch the finalist presentations for both the police station and the library, because the artists are so adept at using technology and showing their past work and also how proposed work would fit in a specific site. So, okay, has the next meeting of that subcommittee, the selection committee, been set?
No, thank you for asking. So we do indeed have a selection committee, just for the record, that includes two commissioners here this morning. Paula Booth, Commissioner Booth, and Commissioner Hernandez are part of that committee, as well as a representative from Hacker Architects, who's working on the new building, the design, and as well as one individual from Public Works. So combined, that's the selection committee for this project. We don't yet have another meeting scheduled. Looking back at the schedule that engineering had created. So again, the posting runs through January 28th. It's anticipated that the group would reconvene sometime in mid-February. So we'll get something on the books, hopefully very soon, to kind of run through all of the submittals and select finalists. We're allowing up to 10 finalists to be selected, and those folks would then have 6 weeks to develop their concepts that would be shared again with the selection committee, anticipated sometime probably end of March, with the final goal of some kind of notice to proceed by end of April. And then just a reminder that the building itself, actually they're going to start groundwork this month. So it's going to run through about 18 months, and it's expected to be completed summer of 2023.
Sounds good. Any questions, any comments? All right, let's move on to Bush Park. And remember, our conversation about this site began with the Guardian of Youth sculpture and a question about whether that piece should be accessioned into the city's public art collection. That led to looking at the cultural landscape report that was created for Bush Park. A large number of stakeholders were involved in that process. There was a recommendation in that cultural landscape report that there be a consideration of the development of some element, a design element, possibly a native plant, garden of native plants that would recognize and acknowledge the presence of native peoples in that area well before there was settlement by others. And so, and then, there's been vandalism of that Guardian of Youth sculpture and what have you. Anyway, I'm going to let Heather talk a little bit about conversations that she's had with Kimberly Fitzgerald, the historic preservation specialist with the city, about what could happen there.
Sure. Yeah, just a couple of options so far. I did reach out. First, I reached out to Patricia Farrell, the parks manager, who was kind of leading that cultural landscape management plan. I'd let her know that this group was interested in potentially working with Grand Rod and the other tribes on some kind of monument or plaque or timeline of sorts. She referred me to Kimberly Fitzgerald, again, the city's historic preservation program officer. And I learned, I didn't realize this, she actually, and I think a small group of staff meet monthly. They have a round table with all three tribes, which is very cool. So at any point, I don't know the dates, but if there was any point in time where we wanted to send someone to sit down and discuss some ideas with that group, just let her know and she can get us on the schedule for that. She also has routine phone calls with all three tribes as well. So I connected with her, actually met with her, and I shared that there was some interest expressed based on the comments in the cultural landscape plan. The first thing that she did actually was forward me to another section of that plan that focuses on U Park, which is actually on the corner of 12th and Mission there. It's kind of just an open grassy area. Let me share my screen. I have a few.
It's adjacent to the parking lot at Deepwood.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys seeing this?
Yes.
So there's an image of U Park. So that was section 8, has its own section within that plan. And there was a number of ideas expressed about potentially converting this area into some kind of native foods garden, and somehow maybe making it a gateway, a better gateway. Right now, it's just kind of a bland blanket of lawn at this point. So there's quite a write-up in the plan about converting this area somehow. So the Mission Parks Conservancy group, I think it is Mission Street Parks Conservancy. They've been working on, they've actually already, let me look at my notes. Sorry, let me pull my notes up here. So the Mission Parks Conservancy, well, one thing first, they already have an interpretive panel in the park. It's not in this U Park area. It's, I guess, in the north parking lot adjacent to the Willamette athletic fields. So showing an image of that. This is something, one, that group helped to bring to fruition back in 2016. So one option for this group, if we wanted to work with them, they are interested and have already been discussing with their board options to update this particular kiosk with new information. Just for information, the cost of this initially was about $13,000 total. Since we have the structure in place, it would just be working on the design for new updated information for that. And the tribes apparently are willing to weigh in and provide feedback. So that's one option. There's a close-up of Here's a close-up of what the interpretive information currently looks like. And so this might just be food for thought if we wanted to try to work with somebody elsewhere in the park or in U Park area as well. So the other option is in that U Park area. I'm going to back up. And let me pull up. She actually sent me an excerpt from the plan. Yeah, so located again, corner of 12th and Mission Street, an open lawn area punctuated by trees. It does have a goal defined in the plan that states establish this often overlooked area as a visual gateway to Deepwood Estate and Bush Pasture Park. Things to consider. Include establishing a first foods and native plant garden with input from the tribes. And there was somewhere within here, consider creating an earth sculpture and or native garden in the same area.
Comments?
And looking back just quickly, I'm sorry, let me look back at all the notes I got from her. The Mission Parks Conservancy actually has already worked with a landscape architect from the U of O and developed a plan for the park. So that could be a starting point if this group wanted to join in some kind of, I know the native garden may be a stretch. The interpretive panels, I'm not sure if we're interested in that or not, but there could potentially be, they've mentioned interest in some kind of sculpture if they move forward with a native food garden in this area.
I think it would be interesting to maybe invite them to our next meeting and, have just some conversation about if the Mission Street Conservancy has already engaged a landscape architect, then someone's thinking about this site, looking at that and seeing what makes sense for us. I know this corner, this section of the park is, people have looked at it for a solution for this for quite a while. It's pretty much of a drive-by site and the traffic moves pretty fast. So I'm curious to see, what they're thinking.
That would be, my only comment would be, so the interpretive panels, that looks great with the existing structure, but to kind of piggyback what Chris was saying, the amount of foot traffic in this area compared to, say, the other entrances of Bush Park, specifically around the main paved areas from Salem Art Association, et cetera, to the far end to where the sculpture we've been talking about, the what is it? The
Guidance of youth.
yeah. So there, to my knowledge, there isn't any other panels, interpretive panels in Bush Park that carry a similar storytelling narrative around that Kalapuya tribe or whatever the stories could be. So that would be my only other comment is we're adding to that area for certain, great planning, but it's still, in my mind, doesn't speak to the overall need, specifically in higher traffic areas that, again, that structure is great. It's existing design, could show up somewhere else in the park as well. In addition to, I'm not saying to get rid of the idea for that garden type theme, but that the higher traffic areas seem to be a void of any of that type of interpretive information.
Kelly?
Yeah, I would like to second that. In other areas of the park, there's a lot of there's other panels that talk about the Bush family, and even photographs that show before and today, but there's no mention of the native people that were in that area, in those areas that are highly used by park members, and putting this out there or any development out in U Park, although I think it would be great, just it just kind of seems like an add-on that's not, it's not really putting it in the forefront that I think that it should be. So that's my personal feeling.
I think there's some other horticulture type signage, placards, trees, some other call outs. I just, from memory of running through there and stuff, that there is some smaller things that are on the ground, but nothing that's like impressive or that would catch your attention. So sorry to cut you off there.
Okay, I have.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Zach is next, and then back to Kelly.
Yeah, just I guess when I first heard about this conversation, it struck me that part of the purpose of introducing an additional plaque would be to create a kind of dialogue about different perspectives of how this land has been used over time. So, which to me suggests what I think you're both saying, which is proximity. So if they're not, if these two things aren't next to each other, then we're really not addressing guidance of youth. We're adding a contextual information somewhere else in the park. So, I'm not necessarily, I don't know what we do with that, except putting them next to each other seems like it would add context to both pieces that would help alleviate or inform some of the conflict around guidance of youth.
Yeah, I think that there could be something close to the guidance of youth piece, and there could be new development and the U Park section of the park, which has been kind of on the list of to-dos for quite a while. It seems to me that talking with the Mission Street Parks Conservancy folks, it's a good group of people, would be just interesting and informative. A couple of my neighbors are on that board. Michael Slater, who's kind of a community organizer and a plant person, is on that board. There's a lot of there's positive energy. So maybe we could figure out what their meeting schedule is or invite them to our next meeting. And, if you haven't had a chance to walk around the park, it is worth it, especially at different times of the day, to see the different users. The U Park is just not where there's a lot of foot traffic, but it is a fairly big, parcel at the corner there. So especially if there's some consideration of something that would be bermed up around the corner that would create a more private and contemplative space closer to the Deepwood Carriage House, would be interesting. And there is a perennial border that borders the Deepwood parcel that is tended by volunteers. A devoted core of volunteers maintains that. Okay, do we need more discussion? Oh, Kelly,
I
sorry.
have a comment. It seems to me that I think that there's an opportunity here for another piece of art, another statue or something that it seems like the time is now to kind of, as we say, tell the other side of this story. And that if we, push that and got people involved, it seems to me that would, how could the city council say no to something to that, like that?
Well,
I'm
I
sure they
agree.
can say no to anything, but like I say, it seems like the time is now, and that we should start to try and alleviate, some of or change some of the story in regards to the guardian of youth. So
I think that a work of art would be appropriate. And there are many artists who create beautiful and elegant site-specific works. Like a Maya Lin would be an example of someone who uses literally the earth and minimal, additions to the site. Lillian Pitt is another person who has done site-specific work and who is a member of the Warm Springs tribe. And there are people who use plant material as well. So I do think it would be worth having a conversation. Again, the Mission Street folks are, it's an interesting group of people. So I hope we can just continue the conversation. And this could be something that proceeds over a period of time. It might not, updating an interpretive kiosk could be step one, and there could be things that follow. But I do think the interpretive kiosk, unless they're going to hire, an artist, I see Parks taking the lead on that, and Kimberly, her area.
Thank you. I reached out to staff and I wanted to share what they had provided today. We had mentioned interpretive plaques as a potential as well during our last meeting. And so I think this was intended just to be a place to start. It's something that was already highlighted in the plan that another group has already potentially started and taken an interest in. So yeah, it's just kind of a place to start. I was told, the tribes are happy to engage and will work with us and provide feedback. Anything that we do is not going to be quick. So just concerning the tribes and all the other stakeholders that will want to be involved. So I know there's interest in moving quickly, and I just want to share that it's probably something that we would need to continue to have conversations with folks for a bit before we would see anything. And then just a reminder, I did double check our budget where we're at after the library reinstallation, and we're presently at about $28,000. It's just a little over $28,000 in the public art fund. We do have some maintenance coming up with the large sculpture that will take some of that. So just passing that along.
Yeah, I think some addition, depending on what happens here, if we're talking about a work of art, I think it should be something with the same physical presence as Guardians of Youth. And that is not small.
no.
So anyway, all right, this was helpful. Are we ready to move on to the Echo Earth Globe? And welcome again, Carol. We are really just very delighted that the Salem Parks Foundation has taken a great deal of interest in the funds that are needed to repair the Echo Earth Globe. And maybe you could just give us an update on the degree to which contributions were made at the end of 2021. And then I'm going to join the Parks Foundation subcommittee on the Echo Earth Globe for a meeting next week. So I'll let you unmute and give us an update.
Okay, first of all, we have received $21,000 in just random donations from since November 1, when we kind of launched the campaign. So that means we only have to get another $279,000 checks. And we've got it made. We're going to move on now into directly contacting businesses in hopes of getting a couple of large checks and possibly as a match challenge. So that's kind of our next our next goal here. And we're working with Public Works, I guess, on getting signage in Riverfront Park regarding the fundraising campaign, so that as people walk by and see that it needs help, they can see how they can help. And so that, and some flyers, we envision the flyers and the signage kind of being alike. And then we can just get flyers posted and sent out to people. So that's where we are now.
I'm wondering if there could be a QR code potentially that's linked to City of Salem. And people have been pretty trained through COVID now to use those.
Yeah,
So it sounds like you're already planning to do flyers and posters and windows. And I would suggest maybe a QR code would be great to just link it back to, easily link it back to any City of Salem.
well,
Or
to the-
link it to the Parks Foundation.
Or, yeah.
I think to our web, because that's where you can
Mhm.
make an immediate donation if you want to it. But, yeah.
Yeah.
But either place, and we will, in our website, we're going to link to the new city specified website for EcoEarth too. But that's we are. I think the QR code is a good idea.
Yeah, and I want to thank Heather for reaching out to Ron Cooper and securing the free usage of some of his images of the
Yeah.
Echo Earth globe.
Yeah.
So that's great. They're beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, Ron gave us a couple of beautiful images, and then just piggybacking on what Carol mentioned, we worked to create a new webpage on the city's webpage dedicated to the Eco Earth Globe, which feels good finally. And we've been able to. I found that proclamation signed by Kulangoski, so we've linked to that, and that was a great idea, Chris. And then we've linked to the video. There's a link to the YouTube video that shows its creation story. So feels good to have that. We've started, and yeah, we were planning to put a QR code on the flyers. Not sure if we can do that on the sign. I'll have to ask, but that would link to the foundation page directly. So excited to be moving forward.
That's great. We're very grateful, Carol, to you and the rest of the Parks Foundation board. Any other questions for Carol? Okay.
I have one other update before we move on, and that's just to share that during our last meeting, SPAC agreed that we would provide a letter of support to nominate the Eco Earth Globe as a local historic resource. And that goes through the Historic Landmarks Commission. So thank you. And Chris had already created some background information on that. So we drafted the letter, got that background information over again to Kimberly Fitzgerald. So we have, that's in the books to go on the 20th, January 20th, I believe, to start that process with the Historic Landmarks Commission. And I believe she said it was about a 60 to 90 day process. If they agree to move forward with that designation, it would go to City Council, and there likely would be a public hearing, but it sounds like a real positive process. It feels good to be submitting for, so we'll see what they say.
Yeah, and thank you for pushing that through the process. And probably, I think the Landmarks Commission meeting would be Zoom. You could watch it on YouTube. I'm going to try to attend along with Heather. All right, let's go to, we've only got a couple other things to do this morning. Let's talk about the drummer. Now, not drumming, resting.
Share my screen.
Did Silas provide any more detail in terms of a base?
No, so I wanted to bring that to you guys, just a quick reminder if it will open here. So there again is our drummer that has been at the convention center for quite some time, at least since 2011, I believe. And then just a quick reminder, during movement recently, the large human figure, I guess you'd say, fell over. It had actually rusted from the base. So We are looking to find out what that's going to cost to repair, as well as replace and do some kind of new base structure for the pieces. So I did have Mr. Silas Cook, who was recommended. He went by and took a look at the piece. He did provide an estimate for repairs. Again, I think I mentioned last month, we'd learned that the piece had at one time been outdoors. And so there was rust apparent at the base of the piece. It's about a 3-inch diameter ring that had rusted through. It's not solid, it had rusted through. And so Mr. Cook took a look, and he's advocating for some kind of, I think, steel or other rod that would go up and further stabilize. The estimate I got from him was $3,500 to $4,500 a range. But it did not, unfortunately, include some kind of new base for the piece. He knows that we're interested in a new base for this, but he wanted more detail from the group. And so I'm not sure what we're looking for. I'm not sure if this group will have feedback. We've had this piece since 1979. It was installed. I did a little bit of research and looked back and learned it's kind of amusing a little bit. We knew it had been outside, but initially it was installed, and I can try to show, it was installed in water. There was a pond, a reflection pond right below the council chambers. And let me pull that up.
Oh, really? In that open space in the Civic Center?
Kind of looking down towards downtown Salem, right below the council chambers. And it's a terrible picture, but I want to share.
So not underneath the overhang that creates that interior plaza.
No, on the other would be the north side.
Got it.
Are you seeing this terrible image again?
Oh, look at that. Who
So
knew?
this is a large, just kind of filled in, they've just filled in with concrete structure now, but at one point it was a reflection pond, and these pieces were directly installed to appear as though they were walking across the water. 1979.
I can
Wow.
I remember this installation.
Is that right?
Wow.
Mhm.
And then here's another image I found. It was later. I assume these bases were I have no idea. I assume this initial metal plate is how it was installed in the fountain. These were added after they were removed, and I don't know why they were pulled from there or why the fountain went away. I suppose there was issues, but in the library.
I had a comment about, it's great seeing the photo again in the convention center. This is a great reference because the issue, if I were to make suggestions, it seems like it's currently 2 bases, it's 2 separate sculptures, but it was presented in the original installation floating to where you didn't see the bases. So that makes it more of a seamless presentation. If I were to make some suggestions, it seems like that they would make a new base where the current small bases, I guess the footers of each individual sculpture, are hidden. So in other words, they would come up from the bottom. There would be a way to fasten them so you didn't see these weird negative spaces of which aren't really supposed to be viewed, to make it just a cleaner presentation, potentially 1 base.
Yeah.
And then to hide the stuff that wasn't intended to be seen via the water surface. I'm not assuming that, not trying to make things have more expense, but just from an aesthetic standpoint, that it's very busy the way it is now. Again, just seeing the photos today, just as a reminder that isn't that desirable. I don't think, to see all that negative space, it's distracting. And to see the space in between the 2 pieces is also kind of a weird negative space it just creates with the carpeting and whatnot.
Well, I think that, and I'm really glad to see that piece, the photo of the piece on the reflecting pool. I think that Robert Hess kind of made those bases kind of on a short basis. I mean, they're not attractive, and they're not really sturdy enough to hold up the work. Well, I am all for continuing the conversation with Silas. If we need to bring in a curator like Jonathan Bucci at the Halley Ford to help us look at best practices and bases, I'm all for that. Or anyone else who would have that type of knowledge.
Let me know. I've also reached out to ARG, who is our conservator on record. I didn't initially think, I don't know why, I didn't initially think that this was something in their purview, but they're happy to provide an estimate. I think, and I haven't seen it yet, kind of sight unseen just by the images. And then they could look later and fine tune. I'd let her know that we were trying to get some additional information about what the base might look like that as we do the repairs as well. So yeah, I guess let me know if we have feedback. That might be something that they could also help us with as well. I don't know.
Okay, well, thank you for the update. Could you share the photograph of the piece in the reflecting pool? Could you send that out? I'd like to share it with the Oregon Artist Series Foundation because I don't believe anyone has seen that original sighting of the work. Susan, question?
Am I allowed to ask a question? I'm not sure what the protocol is. Is the artist still alive, or is there an estate of the artist that could be consulted, since the original intent was to be in water and then it changed over time? Is there any way to consult and see what the artist or estate would recommend?
The artist, Robert Hess, who was a longtime faculty member at Willamette, is dead. His wife is still alive. I'm not sure that she would be a great resource, but we can certainly, someone like Roger Hull might have background, or Nancy Lindbergh. We can, but that's a good suggestion, and we should find out. As I said, I had never before this morning seen that this work was cited in a reflecting pool. I had heard that it was at the library. So this is why I really hope that as the city of Salem celebrates the 50th anniversary of the development of the Civic Center, that some of this historical information is unearthed and shared, so we all know more about this stuff. It must have been super cool looking. I've got to say that.
I remember seeing it long ago, and I just remember thinking, wow, that's really cool. And,
Yeah.
I was like a teenager at the time, but and now that I see that picture, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. And I remember that, wow, it was really impressive for a city.
All right.
Understand the rust issue a little bit more.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. All right, let's move on to the Peace Plaza.
Okay, yeah, so that may take a bit longer. But let me know. I'll reach out to Roger Hull and Nancy Lindbergh as well. Peace Plaza. So many of you have likely heard there are now 4 potential new micro shelter locations. The city is working really hard. We have a number of those micro shelters purchased, and the city is looking for space now to place those. And it's not been an easy feat to find locations that work for a wide myriad of reasons. But one of the 4 that's presently up for consideration is indeed Peace Plaza. So that was shared, I think it was a couple weeks ago. There was a couple news articles about that. There's information on the city's website if you're interested. If you just search micro shelters, they have a page dedicated to kind of describing a bit more about what those mean, what it means in the context that those are in a managed space. And there's also a list of the potential 4 present locations, which let me pull it up. There's also an option to weigh in. And I can share what the locations are. So these have been presented to City Council as an information report I believe Monday's meeting, it was presented. So the 4 locations currently on the table are Peace Plaza. There's a location in South Salem on Turner Road Southeast, location in Central Front and Hood, and Center Street, I believe that's near the Safeway. So again, these would be managed locations for about 40 sites. If you look online and you're interested, there's more FAQs about these locations and a link that you can weigh in with your feedback. My understanding is the city council may talk about this at a work session next week, but the goal is that they would have a decision on the final locations. And I don't know if they'll be selecting 1 or 4 or 2, but that would come back on the 24th of January.
Questions, comments?
Heather, could you send that leak out?
Yes.
Because I really hope they would not put it in Peace Plaza. Seems like that's not an appropriate use of that space, but I haven't been in part of the discussions.
Yeah, I did ask Heather, when I saw something in the paper about this, I asked Heather to look at the appraisal that we did of the collection, the art collection a couple of years ago, and that the James Hansen sculpture, which anchors the Peace Plaza, has a replacement value of an estimated $450,000. So I just I have some concerns about the improvements that were made to the library and the cleanup of the site and the upcoming 50th anniversary of the Civic Center development and the value of the sculpture as to whether that site, whether other sites could be considered. But
was
Kelly.
there a discussion about getting the fountain working again? I thought that was something that was potentially going to happen.
Thank you. Well, we did get an estimate for, and I finally received that for the plumbing of the fountain, as well as they got a rough estimate for just general kind of greenscaping and hardscaping updates in Peace Plaza itself. The fountain, I learned just for the plumbing alone, and there's not a detailed estimate that I saw, but it's about $90,000 to get that functioning again, to get water flowing again in some capacity. So about $90,000 there. I think in all the total estimate for kind of a refresh of Peace Plaza was over 1.6 million, including some recommended updates. That is or was on a list. It's a short session this year for legislative session, but that was one of the requests that the city had intended to bring before our legislators. At this point, we are waiting until there's a decision made on whether or not the Peace Plaza would be used for the micro shelters before that would move forward, as well as continued plans. We're still, the city manager's office is still collecting input and ideas for that 50th year anniversary celebration, but they're holding on that, any efforts, planning efforts on that as well. Kind of everything's kind of waiting until we get a decision from city council on that location.
Okay, any other comments? I guess if you have personal interest in weighing in on the shelter locations, please do so. All right, we're up to action items. We have no formal action to take at this meeting. And so I'm going to move into commissioner comments and suggest that we start this with a possible motion to elect Michael Hernandez vice chair of the Salem Public Art Commission. Should one of you like to make that motion? Paula?
I move that we go forward with an election of Michael Hernandez to be vice chair of the Salem Public Art Commission.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Is there further discussion? All those in favor of the motion to elect Michael Hernandez vice chair of the Salem Public Art Commission, say aye.
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 And there are no votes. Congratulations, Vice
Great,
Chair
yeah, well, thank you for the
Hernandez.
support. I had no idea today would be a new chapter with that. I'm just across the street at Water Place, so I'm looking forward to the day when we all can convene back in person.
Yeah.
Not that this has been terrible, but we've been making do. But yeah, so thanks for the support. Appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I join you in hoping that we can have a face-to-face meeting. Maybe we can do what the Salem Parks Foundation does and meet outdoors in a public space when the weather gets warmer. I want to just start what I hope will be just some brief comments from all of us and say that work has progressed on the level 2 gallery in the Salem Convention Center space that the Oregon Artist Series Foundation is going to collaborate with the Convention Center on for a series of rotating exhibitions by Salem area artists. We installed the first show this week, work by Paula Booth. It is quite beautiful work. She is a regular, it was a COVID project, and she created site-specific or work from her walks in Minto Brown Park. So I hope we can get the Salem Parks Foundation over to see the work as well. Not sure when the public announcement about the opening is going to happen because the lighting for the space is still stuck somewhere on a boat somewhere. And Cherry City Electric has not been able to find a workaround for the part yet. But watch for something, a soft rollout of that. The other thing I wanted to mention for those of you who get out and about is that the Portland Winter Light Festival is going to start in early February. It's a series of kind of a week-long installation of pieces that are experienced at night in bad weather, outdoors. And they're affiliated with the Willamette Light Brigade, the group that lights the Morrison Bridge and other bridges in Portland. So I still dream about something like this happening in Salem someday, somehow, somewhere. And if you're out or you're looking on social media, they always take a lot of photographs, and it really is kind of a fun thing. So I just want to mention those two things. Anyone else have things to share for the good of the order? Paula?
Is it Kristen Coons who has the
Yes.
show? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah, Chris, I think you said Paula.
I thought
I
I
say
heard
Paula?
Paula too.
And then Paula's like, wait, I
I'm like,
have
no.
something that went on. See
Sorry.
something you don't know about? I'm kidding.
I was probably looking at Paula's image on the screen and then her name, and then you lose track. Yes, Kristen Coons, she grew up in the Willamette Valley. She lives in West Salem. Her work is very influenced by the weather and the climate and the flora and fauna of this part of the world. The work, it's quite beautiful, and she's written a lovely statement about it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And Paula, do you want to say anything about the James Thompson show at Western?
Yeah, I just installed a show called Tide Charts Ebb and Flow is the last series that James Thompson created before he passed away a couple years ago. And tonight, Martha and his son, William, are going to be speaking in the gallery at 4:00. And the show's up until February 25th. So if you get a chance to come on out there, I think it's worth it. And let me know if you're gonna come out, and I'll get you a parking pass and meet you in the gallery.
Oh, that's a great offer.
Yeah.
I'll be in touch.
Okay.
Parking pass, yes. Okay. I guess the last question maybe for Heather is I haven't heard more about the Rivers folks and their murals, but I understand that there is activity. So look forward to hearing more about that in the future.
Yeah, I've not heard any more either.
Yeah, I have heard from another party that there's activity, so it sounds like something's going to happen. Anything else for the good of the order?
I have a question for the group. I'm going to be out of town the first week of February. Our next meeting would normally be on the 9th. The second Wednesday is the 9th. If possible, and I hope to know more soon, I might request, if it works for folks, that we try to move that to the third Wednesday, which is the 16th. It would be the same time. And we don't have to decide this morning, but just throwing that out there, I'll probably send an email as we get a little bit closer. If that's an option, I might still be out of town. So that would be great.
That works for me.
Works for
Me.
me.
Okay, cool. I'll send out a reminder just to confirm. Thank you.
Great. Is there any further business to come before us this morning? All right, thank you all. Welcome again, Zach. And we will be adjourned. It's 10:30 a.m.
Mhm.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Have a
you.
great day.
Thank you.
You too.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.